What is going on, gang? Thank you guys for tuning in live. As always, we're here to answer as many questions as we can about your pharmaceuticals, bodybuilding, health, all that good stuff to try to bring as much value as we can. Basically, if you're here, you know the spiel. We have a Discord group. You can join that to get private access to us directly, as well as many other coaches, get direct access to sources, lots of other cool things in there. As well, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Usually you guys already are because you're the OGs, but it is what it is. So, yeah, how's it going, Adam?
Good, man. Good. Like, I think we've been busy as hell, so we really appreciate everyone's messages, everyone signing on. You know, it's been pretty wild, but yeah, business as usual otherwise.
Yeah, dude, it's been crazy. I mean, it's like the end of the competitive year, so thank God clients are, there's not going to be some shows for a time because it's been like every weekend, back to back to back, like up all day, up all night, just answering the phone, hecticness.
Yeah.
It's worth it though, sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I'm not quite done yet. I've got Japan. I got competing in Japan, and then I've got Bangkok, which I'll travel to. Probably pay a stupid fee for the backstage pass again. I didn't realize there's so much. It's like minimum 300 USD for a backstage pass.
Dude, that's the normal. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So, I thought it was Southeast Asia, right? So I was like, oh, backstage pass is not the US. Yeah, no, same price.
Fucking dude.
Yeah, so I'll be there with the fucking rice cakes, salt, and Anavar in my bag.
The essentials. Don't forget the Cialis.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, excited for that.
How's Kat doing on the rebound?
Yeah, she's good. She initially I knew it was. I had everything planned out, but then she wanted to stay a week in the Philippines to see her family and stuff. And her family, being Filipino, was like force feeding her. So that like fucked out of water retention. And I was like, she was stressed about it, but I was like, don't worry about it. We'll get back to hard training, recomp, etc. And now she's like lost a bit of weight, and it's going really well. She's continuing to grow, which is awesome. We'll probably look at maybe doing a pro show. Probably not next year, dude. Honestly, like those bitches are huge. So
yeah,
she's gonna put as much mass as possible, and then look at like a Korea pro show, and then maybe fly to Europe and do like the Euro circuit.
Dude, that'd be so sick. That'd be so sick.
Oh, it'd be sick. I was gonna say it would be sick. I'm just after seeing what the Asia fees were. I'm like, Europe is gonna fucking back up.
Yeah, they're gonna go nuts, man. Hopefully she can get a sponsor by then or something. I mean, she's posting really good content, so somebody's got to be reaching out.
Yeah. I told her like just post as an athlete, just yourself and what you do, because like I guess I would like to think we live somewhat interesting lives, doing shit in Thailand, flying around. So I said just be yourself, post that stuff, and yeah, it's been doing okay.
Yeah, I still get questions about living in Thailand to this day. People are like, "Oh, how is it?" I'm like, "Bro, I moved like." And they're like, "Oh, it's gonna be so crazy and stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, it's great. You should try it. It's some fucking shit." That's so cool. Yeah, I think she definitely has like and you said I think you have an interesting lifestyle. Like you guys live an insane life. That's super awesome. That I think a lot of people would love to see, especially like, dude, if she started the YouTube channel, she's got the tits, she got ass, she's a wellness competitor, and she's got a coach. That's you, and it's just like you guys walk around, you explain the technical details, she does her little posing bits. That's a fucking superstar channel. Instantly.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about that. Just show everything, but then it's like demonetized bad.
Yeah.
That's where all my gear is.
Yeah. She doesn't inject anything, actually.
I inject it.
Yeah.
I actually do sometimes. Should I tell her about the sleeping GH story? I don't know if I told you this.
Yeah.
Basically on prep, Kat would forget to do her GH at times. So I would just inject it when she was sleeping for her, and she just got sort of lazy with it. So I became her sleeping injection, so she would just sleep. I would be working late, then go to bed, and then she would get her GH shot. And I was like, fuck, you become like, what's those guys in Oxygen Gym? They just arrive with their gears, like, there you go.
Oh, it's so funny. She's just getting it in the sleep. You have to worry about it. Just wakes up bigger and it's like, great.
Yeah, literally. You don't have to even worry about your shots.
Oh, it's so fucking sick, man. Okay, KY GOP major. I don't know what that is. If I'm not seeing much growth from 280 test and 210 primo, would I see anything more from 500 tests? Well, yeah, more drugs work better. It's inevitable. I think me and Adam go by the principle of if there's no response in a legitimate, like, you have to be fair, right? If you titrate a dose of gear, like let's say you started this dose 7 weeks ago, you haven't, wrung that cloth dry yet. Let's say you just increased the dose, you haven't wrung that. Like, it's going to take 4 to 5 weeks to see like a, the perceptual gain of the dose increase. But usually it's like I go by like a 100 milligram increment for meals. And then I wait 4 to 5 weeks. I don't just like, oh, it's not happening next week. Like we keep going. Because with the ester, it's going to take time to build up.
I agree. I mean, look, man, it was one of those ones where we need more context. Like, how big are you? How long have you been lifting for? Is your training dialed in? Is your diet dialed in? Are you pushing calories? Are you eating enough calories? Is your sleep good? Is your recovery good? Assuming all those factors are fine, yeah, increase it by 100 milligrams.
Yeah. King Tolo Goons looking for you in Thailand. That would be a death sentence, literally. That would not be good. Tanner Spalding, I'm on the GLP, so I labeled this, I'm on the GLP-1 wave. Now doing just a smaller retina dose at 0.5 every other day, having amazing results just from the appetite suppression. I've had 100% diet adherence since starting. Wow, that's awesome, bro. Yeah, so personal story time. So I just got a huge shipment of retatrutide in, both from Modern Aminos, which you guys should hit up, code Coachkolton. It's a fucking tongue twister. For 15% off now. They upped my discount, which is sick. But I got a huge dose of that shit. So it came in the morning I left for Dallas, Texas. So literally the Lifelines pucks showed up. I grabbed some bacteriostatic water. I had to rush out the door for the airport. So I pumped that shit full of bacteriostatic water. I rolled it up really fast. I just yanked out the same syringe, the 3cc syringe, because I ran out of insulin syringes that morning. A 3cc syringe, I just pulled out what I thought was about half. So it would have been 2.5 mgs. It was definitely not half. It was way more. So I pinned it subcutaneously with a 25 gauge needle. Terrible idea as well. And that was fine, right? So I get to the airport, do my thing. I'm like, cool, whatever. Didn't eat. Just go into the airport. That night, after I got off all these calls and stuff, I was fucking like, oh my God, I need to eat. I was exhausted because I got there, got on calls and stuff. So I went to a steakhouse, got like a normal serving size meal for me, which I eat quite a lot to sustain my weight. So a normal meal is a good portion meal. And I hadn't eaten before that. So it was like lots of protein. It was basically like I would say like an 18-ounce steak, basically. Ate it, felt like really full, like absurdly full. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, I think I'm sick because I kind of forgot I injected it. And then literally walked outside of the steakhouse after we were done, vomited everywhere, like just fucking projectile vomited. I'm like, holy fuck. So the next morning I wake up, only had this steak, nothing else that day, still full. Go to the gym, train, get my whole session done, do cardio. Felt great, felt amazing. Still didn't eat. 3 hours later, had zero desire to eat. Like, I was still felt full from the steak last night. Moral of the story is I dosed way too much, learned my lesson, and also learned how to control portion sizes when I'm eating, which is a really cool thing. But man, holy fuck, I have to say, it's like today I did an injection yesterday. Today I worked and I was like, oh fuck, I have to eat. And it's like 5 p.m. the whole day, and you're just cruising along, which is good and bad. For me, it's kind of like my desire is just to work right now, so I'm not really focused on like being massive. But so it's great for me. But for someone who's competing, if they don't eat like that, that's fucking detrimental. First of all, I just want to be clear. But that sensation to not be food focused all day for multiple hours, amazing. Like, I can't even describe how nice it is. It's almost like a cognitive enhancement because you're not being distracted.
Yes,
it's amazing.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, because it was quite funny when they became popularized a little while ago. I know a lot of people in the bodybuilding community were even saying, oh, I don't know what their bodybuilding application is, just for people who can't diet. And I mean, I'm not saying I fucking pioneered this in the slightest, but what the immediate application that I saw was competitors with food focus, because I know a lot of people can stick to a diet, but a lot of not a lot of people, most people have jobs, most people have other endeavors that they need to do. And when you are that lean, properly staging, you become massively food focused. And also often when you get food focused, you'll jack up your cortisol because you're worried about food, then you're not doing your work, etc., etc.
Can't sleep.
So, exactly. So I implemented a GLP even for those competitors who can stick to their diet, simply to reduce their food focus. Lo and behold, my competitors were less stressed. They got more shredded. I did the same thing with Kat. She got really shredded. And yeah, I think its application for preps are great. Even if you can stick to a diet, you're just not food focused. But yeah, set alarms for your meals because you will forget.
Yeah, you easily forget. It's crazy. And I agree. It's like on prep, it's so unique because it just completely eliminates half the issues. Like you can't sleep, you're moody, like all these things gone. And that's so powerful. But there is caution there because I do think it can be, I don't think, at least we don't have research to support this, but I don't think it's been in circulation long enough. I don't think that it's physiologically addictive, but I could see how it could become addictive just because of its effects to your life. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you don't have it, it feels detrimental, you know? Like I went through that whole week in Dallas with a super large bolus at the beginning of the week. Towards the end of the week, it was like my body suddenly realized it hadn't eaten enough all week. And so that kind of hunger was different. It was like I had ignored all the hunger, but then in one moment it came back just like a fucking brick in the morning. And it was a terrible feeling. So something I definitely need to, you know, kind of delve more into. I'd be really interested to see the research on like physiological addictions to stuff and, you know, look into that way. Is there any research that shows it's catabolic? Actually, no. The issue is that most people just don't eat enough protein. Like the average Joe gets the GLP-1 agonist, they start injecting it, but they never knew how to diet before that. They never ate enough protein before that. They were already undernourished and overfed. So now they're underfed and undernourished, and they're just losing muscle mass primordially and maintaining, honestly, a lot of their fat mass.
I think the bodybuilding application for it and the general population application, how they apply it, is very, very, very different. You know, bodybuilders, I'm saying, like I said, we're using it to make dieting easier, reducing food focus, using it to even control a rebound. I mean, with the triple agonists like retatrutide, you know, affects GRP, GLP, and I think GGR receptors. Also has issues, I mean, also has benefits around like hepatic lipolysis. So if you guys want to look into that, basically can reduce liver fat. So if you're bodybuilding blasting, using a lot of insulin, eating a lot of food, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease can become an issue. So there's interesting benefits with that. So yeah, the way he uses the bodybuilder is quite different. One caveat I will say, and you know, Kolton had an interesting story with, you know, you getting too full and throwing up. Funny enough, I did the exact same thing, and I generally think, but in my case, I went with the recommended dose, which was, I think, for retatrutide was 2 milligrams. So from I found online, it said 2 milligrams to stop. That was way fucking too much. I couldn't eat on 2 milligrams. So what I tell everyone is, I think the pamphlet or recommended dosages are way too fucking high. So I say start way lower, like 0.5 milligrams. Assess your appetite, assess your gastric motility and digestion, and then, if needed, increase it. Because I just was like, okay, pamphlet's like, okay, start 2 milligrams, cool. Didn't eat for like 2 days.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? Is you're like, cool, I'm gonna fucking jack this shit up, and then it's like, nope, that's not good at all. Like I fucking hate this. Like today I ate yogurt and I was just like, oh, I don't feel good. Like it wasn't a good feeling, you know. So you do have to be careful for sure. But I love it. I think there's so much application in this sport and in many others for people, and like especially for you and I, where business is a motive. It's like I can't even imagine like being hungry like that. Like doing a prep seems like now seems very feasible. It seems extremely feasible. Like I wouldn't, because like legitimately, if I just wanted to eat 1,400 calories, I could. I wouldn't have to do cardio. I could just sit on the computer all day and be productive. You know, obviously there's counterintuition there where you could be catabolizing a lot of tissue, but yeah. What's up? Okay, do you guys use essential amino acids intra? Yes, I particularly do. I don't think there's an exorbitant benefit, but it's a good insurance policy, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Do you want me to explain the rationale?
Yeah.
So the reason we typically use EAAs, okay, we know that we typically want to stimulate muscle protein synthesis roughly every 4 hours. Now, if you can have slow digesting proteins like a big steak, which take longer, that sort of can mitigate it. But the whole idea is if you had like a pre-workout meal, like an hour before training, let's say you train for 2 hours and the next meal you're going to get is 30 minutes, an hour later, the whole idea is that you have those amino acids there ready to facilitate the hypertrophic process. The analogy I give is, imagine you cut yourself on your arm and you start bleeding, right? You can wait for a scab to coagulate, or you can just put the band-aid immediately there. So the idea is that you constantly have those building blocks of protein. Also, you potentially using insulin, which helps uptake macronutrients, or rather amino acids and glycogen, to the various tissues of the body. So if you have that nutrient there, you typically are starting the recovery process sooner. And the idea is that you also upregulate muscle protein synthesis when you train. Therefore, you have those building blocks there. So as Kolton said, it's called like an insurance policy. Is it going to make or break your progress? Probably not. But if you're someone training for longer periods of time, training hard, using insulin, yeah, you might see some benefit from it.
Yeah, 1000%. And there's been some good research to even support like cortisol suppression with nutrient intake intra-workout, post-workout, like cortisol suppression. So I would say there's definitely like benefits. It's just, look, like if I'm being honest, essential amino acids are pretty costly. They're not cheap. If I'm having someone spend, let's just say 45 USD on a product twice a month, am I going to tell them not to buy, a kit of growth for that price? I think the growth would do much better. So in comparison, yeah, it's not really worth it. But if you have the extra cash and you're looking at supplements, it's definitely one of the ones I would put in as a good intra-workout product.
Very much.
Mason Shepherd, I see all the different GLP-1. I feel like there are 10 plus in this just because the different farm companies trying to create their own. Kind of. I mean, so the problem with the pharmaceutical industry is you like people find something like Ozempic, which is just the patented name, it's the brand name, and they patent it, so you can't make that product, or another company can't make that product. And so what has to happen is these companies will change the molecular structure or action of a drug just by a small amount, or even change like the administration style. Maybe it's injectable one way and then oral another way, just to be able to sell that product and make a couple billion, which would be easy, even if it's like a low threshold selling product. So you have to modify the patent, but then also, like when we look at retatrutide, for example, compared to Ozempic, I would say retatrutide is far superior in terms of what it's able to do for hepatic function and not just suppress hunger, but actually at an organ level, like even possibly regenerate beta cells within the pancreas. Insulin secretion basically would improve. So there's a lot of reasons that other ones are better, but I think a lot of them are just kind of duplications of each other. For example, like trizepatide and Ozempic are two different administration styles, but they're basically the same net thing. So
yeah, pretty much.
Do you think Reta twice a week might be the way to go to? Yes, I do. In fact, that's what I've started doing. I'll do 500 microgram doses once or twice a week with clients now, as opposed to like a 2 milligram bolus dose. Just from my experience alone, I was like, that's not wise.
It's sort of like PEDs, where the large bolus dose I usually find induces nausea in a lot of people. So the larger the dose, the more likely you can get nausea, the more likely it's going to really slow your digestion. So I find even with the long-acting ones like retatrutide, microdosing or daily or every other day or every third day administrations just seem to work better. And also remember, it's sort of like a subjective effect you're looking for. What I mean by that is you're looking for appetite suppression. How do we measure appetite suppression? So that's something where dialing in your dosage may be quite variable, which is why I usually don't even necessarily have a completely set protocol with some of my athletes. I'll tell them, take 0.5 milligrams every 3-ish days, or when you start feeling the effects wear off. And usually based on feedback or communication between us, we'll find a dosing schedule where it's enough that the appetite is suppressed to a sufficient level. Some people don't want to completely suppress no appetite unless they're at prep. I've got guys using it in a rebound phase coming out of a show who are using it enough to curb their appetite, not enough to completely kill it. And for them, it's like, okay, they'll take 0.5 milligrams every 3 to 5 days when they start feeling it wear off and hunger start creeping up really, really high. So just think, be wary that if you're feeling very full, so if you're feeling no hunger, you feel very satiated, you don't necessarily need to take another dose. You can actually wait a little bit, depending on what your appetite's like.
Yeah, I would say that's the other huge benefit is like I was saying before, like I took that very large dose at the beginning of the week. I had zero hunger. At the very end of the week, I had erratic hunger. And so if I was to just split that in half and then dose it, 2 separate dosings, just like serum levels of testosterone would be more stable, and therefore I wouldn't have that rebound effect at the end of the week, which I think can fuck a lot of people in the long run, to be honest. I know it nearly fucked me. I was like, oh my God, I could fucking eat anything. It was crazy. Hi from Florida. Hello. Hi, Samantha. What's up, Tanner? Okay, the milkman comes back again. How do I manage my blood pressure when I'm taking steroids? Any tips? I drop EQ and I'm just on 25 milliliters of testy. 25 maybe you meant 250 milligrams?
2.5 mils? What are you talking here?
Yeah, hopefully. I hope so. That's crazy. That's some serious fucking. That's some serious dose, boy. How do you manage blood pressure? Well, there's several different ways. I think one of the ways that we're most keen with is just to manage mineral intake. And so a lot of people will underconsume potassium. If you increase your potassium intake and even sometimes drop your sodium intake just by a little bit, that can do enough to manage blood pressure. Alternatively, the simple things, staying hydrated is simple, but it works every fucking time. If someone's drinking 3 liters or 4 liters of water a day and they're weighing 220 plus pounds, it's like drink 6 or 7 and you'll soon find that your blood pressure goes really down really fast. And also just generally de-stressing. Like, I know that's like easy to say, hard to do, but a lot of the times it's just that it's not necessarily the steroids. Sometimes it's the like adrenergic state you put yourself in through overconsumption of caffeine, stimulants of other kinds, yohimbine, clenbuterol, albuterol, or just like modafinil, for instance. And then that pushes you into the verge of hypertension. So there's a lot of different ways. Ultimately, the other answer is just dropping the dose of cure.
Yes, I agree with Kolton there. Like the quick fix that we give to most clients,
250 mgs a test. So we're good.
All good. Look, if you've got blood pressure on issues on that much testosterone, as Kolton said, it's most likely an electrolyte issue. Try to get potassium to about 5,000 milligrams per day. Try to keep your sodium intake consistent. You remember, like high sodium is not necessarily going to cause high blood pressure in the absence of adequate hydration. So as Kolton said, 6 to 7 liters, which I think is about 1.5 to 2 gallons of water per day. Getting some form of cardiovascular activity will help tremendously too. Like even, HIIT style training twice a week will really help your blood pressure as well as sensitivity and other benefits. What else? Ensuring that you have enough fiber in your diet can affect your blood pressure, as well as actually your E2 levels. So if you're aromatizing a fair bit, which is possible in 250 milligrams of testosterone, that can also affect blood pressure. What else? I guess even being like nutrient deficient in your diet causing inflammation, less likely, but as Kolton said, there's several different things to have blood pressure, but the big ones to tick off are like hydration, electrolytes, cardio, controlling E2. I'm probably missing at least one, but those are the main things you want to tick off. And then if you really can't control all of that, sure, you can look in an angiotensin blocker like telmisartan and maybe try 20 to 40 milligrams per day. Please don't jump on that immediately. Do the other steps first, because honestly, I've had guys who are like, I had a strongman guy, Mitch, shout out to Mitch, who was 300 pounds, and we never used blood pressure medication at all. Let's control it through diet, electrolytes, all those things. And only now that he's enhanced, we have to use 20 milligrams of telmisartan. So explore that first.
Yeah, I agree. Most people don't need telmisartan if you are managing things correctly. Like if you're 300 pounds, sure. But if you're, 220 pounds, usually less, let's be honest, you don't need that shit. Like you're not vasoconstrictive enough. You just need to manage your diet a little bit better, which it's not rocket science. It's not like we're smarter than you. It's just like, it just takes a little bit of extra work, which is hard, admittedly, but it is important. Mason Shepard asks an important question. Wife wants to take 5 to 10 mgs of Anavar for her bikini competition in April. What would be the ideal time frame for her to take it? Should she start in January and end after her show? So let me just for context, I want to pull up Kat, and then you can kind of explain maybe dosing regimes you would use just as like a show of, because I think a lot of people might hear what we say and think bullshit, but in reality, like it's far from bullshit. So I'm gonna share. You talk.
Yep. And then I will caveat this and say, obviously, we understand everyone has individual genetics, individual response time, but the same methodology and the same way I approach female PEDs, I do with all my female clients. Not that I give them the same PEDs, but rather we have the same approach, and I'll explain why. Okay.
The sick one with the
The mask. Yeah, maybe try find like the transformation one. That's a pretty good one. Or just any of these, to be honest, because
they're all good. Yeah, it does less justice if we can't show like where she started this year.
Oh no, if you scroll up, scroll up a bit, by pointing at the screen here. Scroll up a bit more, scroll up a bit more. Keep going. Okay, up. Yep, and then you use that transformation on the triple. There you go. There you go. Okay. So, my man Mason. Catherine used during her prep only 2.5 milligrams of Anavar in the last 4 weeks. Okay, coming into the first few weeks, there was a little bit of Anavar, again 2.5 to 5 milligrams on her training days, but that wasn't the main drivers of anabolism. Okay, now I'll try to summarize my giant speech on female PED usage, but you want to look for non-virilizing compounds first. Okay, things like injectable carnitine, things like growth hormone, things like injectable IGF-1, things like clenbuterol, which all have a slight anabolic effect, which synergistically when stacked can work together. Because your wife is a bikini athlete, okay? Bikini does not require low muscle. Catherine is a wellness athlete. She's a wellness IFBB pro, okay? And I know people might say, well, she has fantastic genetics. Yeah, sure. But the same approach I've used with many female athletes because I'm trying not to viralize them, okay? You have to remember anabolic compounds, even Anavar, will viralize them. It takes 62.5 milligrams, okay, for females to start transitioning to a male. You can look up the dose that they give to transgender clients to transition them, okay, or become transgender, whatever you want to call it. So that means at a dosage of even 10 milligrams per day for an extended period of time, you can viralize your wife. And I'm sure you don't want to do that. So I'm not saying do not take Anavar, but for a bikini athlete, you can probably get away with not using it or just use it in the last 4 weeks. And instead, to promote anabolism and retaining tissue, you can look at things like I mentioned, growth hormone, injectable IGF-1 locally in the glutes, carnitine to upregulate androgen receptor density, clenbuterol, which is going to have an anabolic effect. Okay, you can use things like DHA and pregnenolone to increase endogenous levels of testosterone. So there's all these other non-virilizing compounds that you can use first to build muscle, retain muscle, and then that means that you can limit your dosage and usage of anabolics like Anavar to only use them in like the last 4 weeks, maybe at like a really small dose of 2.5 milligrams per day, or it's a really small dose during the off season. So you'll have a greater growth response and really your wife won't be viralized. I mean, shit, man, I remember being backstage and speaking to a lot of, the girls came like second, third, and fourth, and like they were telling me these dosages and their voices were fucked. And I was like, man, I get it. We all love bodybuilding, but is this like really worth it? So there's more intelligent ways to go about it. So long story short, explore everything not viralizing first. If you need it, try 2.5 milligrams sublingually on training days, and then you can maybe go to every day. And being in bikini, I don't foresee her needing more than 2.5 to maybe 5 milligrams maximum. I would probably say don't run it. This is not a hard and fast rule, but probably don't run it for more than 8 weeks. What you want to do is monitor her voice on a frequent basis. If you want to be real scientific about it, what I do is I get them basically do a decibel reader. They say the same line every week at the same time, and I basically check for fluctuations. And usually for most female athletes, they keep it under the 8-week mark. Again, some people at 6 weeks experience side effects. They can sort of not experience the anabolic side effects. And so that's a crash course in female PED usage. Basically, you're trying to not to viralize your athletes. I get if you're doing figure or physique, there's probably going to be certain trade-offs, but you can still heavily mitigate it and not viralize as much as you see some female competitors. So I mean, I think Kolton has spoken about so many times, I've spoken so many times, but if you got a coach and he's new in bikini or even wellness and it's like, oh, you're going to start taking 10 milligrams of Anavar at the start of your prep, do X amount of cardio, have no carbs and, take a bunch of Clen. I'm sorry, your coach is a dipshit. Find a new one. Like, yeah. I'm tired of being nice. It's the truth.
No, it's so true. It's so scary too, like you said, and I think a lot of people don't really conceptualize the meaning of that. Like for a female who wishes to be transgender, it takes 60 to 70 milligrams of testosterone. Yep. A girl taking 10 milligrams of Anavar is all she needs. And And even if that dose exposure is low, it's still that time spent is going to be exposure nonetheless. And it's still going to cause virilization to some degree. So you really do have to be considerate. There's so many tools. And it just breaks my heart when I see these girls fucking themselves up because there's so many tools in the basket. You have like, I don't need to repeat what Adam said, but the peptides are numerous and they don't cause virilization. You can use so many of them. And it's just like you have things like SLU, PP, you have things like MOTS-C, you have things like if you need fat loss, you got those. If you need anabolism, you have growth hormone, you have a small amount of insulin, you have all of these assets, and you don't need to pull out the Anavar card just because some other girl's doing it. Full stop.
Yeah, 100%. I think female coaching is poor. If I'm gonna be transparent, I think it's for most of the times you see females in shows and they viralize and they're not even muscular. Again, what I'm really proud of, at least with Kat, and what I'm planning to do with all my female athletes is she's IFBB pro and she's no viralization. Go follow her, go listen to her stories, go listen to her voice. Nothing spiked. And she was arguably one of the most muscular on stage. And those girls, I spoke to them, and no disrespect to them, they were viralized. Their voices were akin to mine.
Yeah, it's really sad, man. Especially when you see like bikini girls who are just at the start of their career and getting into this. I did a video on. I talked to her. She's from Australia. She's that. Oh my god, I'm forgetting her name.
I think it was when you talking about the big delts. Is that the one?
Yep, the huge fucking delts.
Is she natty?
She's not natty. I talked to her and I'm like, I'm gonna do a video on you, and she's like, totally cool. Like, just don't be an absolute dick. And I was like, totally fine. But I talked in that video about like how she's generally like she's jacked, but she's generally, at the start of her career, she hasn't actually competed, and her voice is already extremely deep. And I talked about that as being a common occurrence in this sport, and it really is, because especially in places like Australia, where I think a little bit of the, appropriate use is less well renowned. You see this so often. It sucks. It's destructive. As Joshua Perry says, though, 25 mils is a good beginner dose. It's the only way to do it. You got 5 in the right quad, 5 in the left quad, 5 in the lat, 5 in the lat, and then 1 in the cheek, man. That's how
we inject by vials. Yeah, we go by vials, not CCs, by vials.
Yeah, how many vials of test do you want a week? That's crazy. Frost number 2 asks thoughts on HCG/8mg on cycle to maintain fertility parameters. It works great. It works pretty good. I think honestly, I think HCG monotherapy is just about what most people are going to need, unless you're really finding a hard time to get your motility up, and then HMG can be pretty useful. But
But we have to caveat that Kolton was saying, like, are we talking about someone taking a TRT-ish dose? Or are we talking about someone who's trying to be competitive bodybuilder, gaining much muscle and is blasting? Like, I see it as, I'm seeing it as like, if you're on the side of TRT maintaining fertility, but HCG monotherapy, just remember it's going to increase aromatization, so you might have to dial in estradiol a bit more, okay? But if you are a bodybuilder, pushing grams upwards, dose upwards of a gram or whatever you need, using 19 NORs or contest prep, whatever, I think you're just wasting your money and probably just causing more aromatization than required. Save it for when you are trying to get your partner pregnant and you try to restore fertility parameters.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, lower dose androgens is going to be overall less suppressive, especially if we're talking about using 19 NORs, which were a lot of in people using MET, which is designed to be a fucking a contraceptive for males. So yeah, at TRT doses, generally HCG is going to be fucking phenomenal. At higher doses, the regimens are going to need to get a little bit more intense. So also, Mason, thank you for that. Just hope your girl stays good and safe. Chest injections are, I've done too many in my lifetime, to be honest, and they are definitely, I think they're actually overrated, to be honest. But, Josh Perry, Clen before VAR in women, for sure. I think like 20 micrograms of Clen in an off season can actually be really advantageous, as opposed to just blasting fucking Anavar all year round. How can I secretly pin my girl with MOTS-C so she can lose weight? She can't find out though. Sure.
Absolutely, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, it won't virilize her, so you got that.
Might as well add GH too. Like, come on.
GH, yeah, IGF right in the delts. She won't know. She'll notice nothing. Okay, let me see. There's a lot of stuff here. Oh, okay. We're good. H2 Yeah, Equipoise is most of the time coming in the form of undecanoate as an ester. That's going to take really long time to see any shifts in serum concentrations. And you're looking at probably being in blood serum, having Equipoise concentrations for at least 6 to 8 months. Yeah. That's why when people want to do PCTs and they're using Equipoise, I'm like, good luck, bro. It's not going to work.
Yes. Clearance time on EQ is quite long. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, to reach peak serum concentration levels, on average, I believe it's like 45 days. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. Evening, brother. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, I agree. Pecs. Besides pecs, I like everything here. I actually really enjoy traps. I don't know many people who do that. I find that they're pretty easy to reach for me because I just like grab my elbow and then put it in like that. But yeah, are people / coaches still doing Mast in the off season, and how much are users really getting from it? I mean, again, we've talked about this a lot. I think quite a bit. I just had this discussion with somebody today. The most I ever had grown in my entire life was I got to, like, when I was actually trying to be big and shit, it was 260 pounds, and it was Mastron, testosterone, and Nandrolone, and they were each at 300 milligrams. Worked perfectly. I've never had any issues with getting someone to grow on Mastron. I've never had any issues with getting someone lean on Mastron or lean on Nandrolone, for instance. Like, it's never been a contradicting thing to use whatever androgen's best affecting that person. So in your question answered, yes, people are still using it. I find that people do get a lot of benefit from it. So,
yes, I know. Dean, Steve, and Kurt.
Yeah.
I'm not currently. Yeah, I'm currently not thinking of the bald trio. Who's my other favorite bald guy? Poor. So yeah, I know that they were saying, Maestron, we don't have any actual medical evidence or scientific evidence showing that it builds muscle, which is true. I mean, it was made for women's breast cancer. Okay, but as Kolton said, anecdotally, we've had hundreds, thousands, maybe millions, now thousands of bodybuilders who've used it at this point, and it's one of those compounds where, can I say for certain it's going to grow as much tissue as a primobolan or testosterone? No, I do think there is, a slightly different amount of anabolism you potentially can get from each compound, but that's where you have to, assess what are the side effects you're trying to avoid. Are you able to get real, affordable Maestron, primobolan, whatever your compound is, and are able to scale it? So, I don't think you need to basically write off any compounds really. It's going to be like how you react, what's the availability of it, and how that works in conjunction with what you're doing. As Colin said, Maestron is actually a compound I used for years, because basically getting real primobolan was just not happening in Australia for all the ones I tested. So Maestron was often used, and I would basically just scale that up as well as the testosterone. Could you argue, was the testosterone? Yeah, potentially, but in conjunction they work quite well. So find what you tolerate well, find out what you get a good growth response from, and that keeps your health markers fine, and just keep titrating it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think there's this. I also had a consultation call recently with a guy, and I was trying to explain. He's like, "What's the best cycle for X and Y and Z?" And I was like, "All drugs, all androgens are effectively working on the androgen receptor in the same capacity. Like, they're initiating the cascade of mTOR stimulation essentially in the same way. The difference is their off-targeted effects. And so the selection of what cycle is going to work best for you, for whatever you're trying to do, is based on your reaction to those specific compounds. I have guys' cycles who are entirely different. Like, I have, a dude doing prep right now. I brought up Mastron because he's on, 450 mgs of Nandrolone, 150 mgs of test, and no DHT, and he looks great. But if we throw it a DHT, he gets super flat. He talks about being really lethargic and sort of truly depressed. So it's for some people, things work a lot differently for different reasons. And you just have to consider, if you're looking for the AR receptor activation, any drug's going to do that for you. You just need to find the one that's going to best agree with you for the longest amount of time, so that you can expose yourself and then get the effects. is what I believe. Obviously, some of the side effects are desired, like trenbolone in the cutting season. It can decrease thyroid thyroid binding globulin. Umastron can inhibit estrogen in some capacity. Permobolin can extremely lower estrogen serum concentrations quite drastically. So each of these things are desired for specific reasons, but bigger picture, just finding what equates to you the best results with the lowest degree of sides is the drugs you want to use for whatever reason. So, yeah.
Yes.
There was another question in here. I have some Clen that I purchased in 2019. Jeez, you've been sitting on that. Do you think it's still safe to take? Yeah, it's not irradiated or anything, bro. You're straight up good to take that shit.
Take them and find out. See you next week.
Report back next week. No, you should be fine. If it's pharmaceutical grade, I'd be more confident for sure, because it's like actually yeah, it's definitely not. But yeah, it's likely still good. Just make sure whatever it is, if it's liquid, mix it up. Like just really vigorously mix it up so it's not all like micrograms. I think people really misunderstand like how big a microgram is. It's virtually you can't even see it if you were just putting your hand. And so if you have a fluid like a dropper of clenbuterol and you just let it sit, all those micrograms are at the bottom. So you pull a fucking ml of that shit from the bottom, you're getting like 300 mics of fucking clenbuterol and your heart's going through the roof, man. So if you have liquid, just make sure you fucking shake that shit up like a shake weight, because that can fuck you up real bad. Is Tristyn Lee Natty?
No idea.
I don't know. I would say probably not. I don't actually, to be honest, haven't actually looked at him in ages. Now that I'm thinking,
I've seen so many dog shit physiques who are not natty, and I've seen some great physiques who are natty. So to be honest, unless it's like Mike O'Hearn, obvious natural. I usually say I have no idea. You could be pinning gear and just look like shit, or you could just have pretty good genetics.
Yeah, he's so hard to say. It's like he's been jacked since he was a kid, like literally since he was a child. So is he an amazing physique? Yeah, he's got a fucking no chest but a great physique. But like all reality though, like look at him with the t-shirt on. Like do we see anything like that crazy? Not really, and I think like people think this because he's just lean and people don't often see lean people. And also he's short. Like I think that's another big thing. Like right there, like Hadi Chupan is fucking short. He's basically qualified as a midget. They're the same height. And so when someone's short, they look a lot bigger. But in reality, like when you're standing next to other people, it's like, okay, he's not that crazy, to be honest. Like he's a big dude, but he's not insane. And this picture is not justice because he's standing like a foot in front of these guys. So like, yeah, he's going to look pretty big, but it's not necessarily doing an accurate representation.
I think it's completely plausible that he's natty.
Yeah. He's got, so the way I'll put it is he's got really good arms. So sure, he's going to look big, but it's not like, if you look at his chest or his traps, I mean, it's not crazy. But could he be taking something? Sure. I just don't think it's, Do you want me to show you a guy?
Do you want me to show you a guy everyone is probably going to think that's not natty? I'm going to try to find his profile. He's this is where everyone's going to accuse me of lying. Can you search on Instagram Yann, Yann? I should be following him. Shout out to Prep Dad as coach.
Yann.let?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. Pull him up.
Okay. Yeah, this is crazy.
Go to his stage pose. No one thinks he's natty. I always fucking troll him and say he's a fake natty. But I know his coach. I will say with 99% certainty, this guy's natty. And no one who sees him on IG believes him. I've trained with him. I've seen him in person. I've spoken to him. I know his coach, Luis. He wants him to go enhanced. Okay. But he's probably one of the craziest natural guys I've seen. But you see him in the offseason.
Nuts.
Yeah, but he's natty, and that's why I'm saying people really don't understand that there are some people with some really fucking crazy genetics and really crazy work ethic who look great. People are not going to believe me, but this guy's natty. He really is.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, his legs are crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Those motherfuckers got some circumference, and look at those glutes too. Fucking hell.
I kept telling him like, dude, I'm gonna fucking pin you in your sleep so you can just become an But he came
Oh,
second in the overall. He almost won his pro card.
That's crazy, man. I would have been pissed as fuck. Like, really, bro?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why people, I think their perception is just so skewed. Like, bodybuilding is really popular these days. Like, you know, like if there's people in the NBA with crazy genetics specific to basketball, why do you not think there's going to be people with crazy genetics specific to bodybuilding?
Yeah,
like
this is true. You know? Yeah, and to be honest, like I talked about this before, but like people with that kind of genetic lineup, it's like 1% of the 1%. And so like if you put 100 people in a room and those 100 people are the top 1% genetics in the world, and then we took the top 1% of those people, people wouldn't even believe what the fuck they were seeing. They wouldn't even understand it because it's so far beyond what other people are capable of achieving. It's like, that's inhuman. But there is that kind of like, there is over 153 genetic traits that basically you can collect that aid muscle growth. And so if you get a guy who's got 100 of those, like, he's going to look fucking ridiculous. If you get a guy that's got, you know, 5, he's going to look amazing to most people. But compared to the other guy, it's like, dude, what? Like, that's nuts, you know? So, yeah. Look at my avatar. It's talking about Masteron. Are you guys still scared of using? I don't think we were ever scared of using AIs, or have we passed that time in the bodybuilding world? I was never scared of using them. I just think there's so many other alternatives to using them. AIs aren't. A lot of people think they're banes for your health, but they're not bad inherently for your health. It's just that we don't need them if we're able to act on the inhibit estrogen in an alternative capacity.
Yeah, it's like saying, if I could control your blood pressure through diet alone, electrolytes, why the fuck would I just give you 80 milligrams of Telmisartan?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with AIs. Is there, you know, potentially some risk around, you know, lipid health with long-term use? Yeah, potentially. I mean, I have seen it with guys screwing their lipid health, but at the same time, they're also misdosing their AIs and crashing their estradiol, which will also fuck your HDL. So it's hard to tell. But long story short, if you can not use more drugs and you just through intelligent cycle design and lower body fat control your estradiol, why not?
Precisely. You said it so amazingly. Yeah. Less drugs is generally a good thing when you're already using polypharmacy.
Yes.
I've gotten fucking people's cycles where I'm looking at the list and just like from top to bottom, like, what the fuck are you, why do we, like, what is half of this shit even for at this point? It gets hectic. You got dudes using SERM, AIs, and a fucking, you know, dopamine agonist. I'm like, why? Like, what? Just change one drug and you're done. You don't need the other three. It's crazy. Done sin, boys. I mean, nicotine's actually very cognitively enhancing, and since those are just nicotine pouches, I can't really say anything horrible about them. It's just a sublingual administration of nicotine. So
I actually can, unfortunately. So I've had 2 clients. Wait, sorry guys, I'm sorry to burst this bubble, but I had 2 clients who their resting heart rate kept fucking going up. Okay, and these are guys. One guy was like 180 pounds, and his resting heart rate was like 85 beats per minute, and it was getting higher. I was getting really fucking worried. One guy's 116 kilos, a big motherfucker, but his resting heart rate was also sitting around like 77 and kept going higher, which, you know, not for someone that size the worst, but still I would say not good. And I was troubleshooting fucking everything. And then my wonderful clients was like, oh, by the way, I've been taking a lot of Zins or nicotine patches. Or nicotine, the pouches.
That
and I was
makes
like,
sense.
fuck that. And look, again, if you're using a small dose for cognitive enhancement, and sure, go for it. Okay, I know a lot of people do it. But these guys are having like 5-6 plus pouches. And I don't know what the exact I don't know what the exact milligram was there, but like it's probably the standards in dosing, whatever it is. And they were having a fuckload of it, and it was just fucking their resting heart rate. So if you can control it and keep your resting heart rate in check, by all means go for it. But like, be aware of the addiction, be aware of the elevation in heart rate.
Average dose is about 6 mgs per pouch. So that's like 20 plus cigarettes a day at that at that dose, which is fucking hectic, man. So I mean, look, I think in moderation, like I've used nicotine pouches, I've used nicotine patches. I think they're great for cognitive enhancement. I do like them, but again, I think it's one of those things where you pull it out of the drawer and you know you got a long day ahead and you're not really using it on a chronic basis, because once it's chronic, it's like you're just abusing it at that point, just like anything else. I didn't even read this. Kolton, I love your neck tattoo. Can I get the same one? Probably not. I got each of these in a different country. You can try. It won't do you. I don't think it'll. It's 2024. I think more people actually look at tattoos as like an inclusionary criteria for the DEI checklist as opposed to like a bad thing. So, is Nolvadex good to reduce gyno?
Depends.
If it's the good answer is if it's solidified, no. Like if it's actual tissue that's been developed, the tissue's there, bro. Like it's not going anywhere. There's nothing you can do to erase tissue. If it's beginning its growth pattern, then you can stop from getting worse. But again, anything that's been solidified, it can also reduce inflammation, right? Like people get watery nipples, not necessarily like gyno nipples, but watery, inflated nipples. It will stop that, but it won't stop tissue that's been developed. Nothing will just eat away tissue, like basically adipose tissue that's been developed under your breast. It's not going to happen.
Correct. As Kolton said, if it's fibrous and been there for a while, I'm sorry, man, you kind of fucked. You can potentially shrink it a bit, but then if you're shrinking a bit, it's usually meaning your estradiol and or prolactin is out of range, and you're just really bringing that down, which is shrinking the tissue there. It's really going to depend how prevalent it is too, because if you lower your body fat, it can also lower some of the fat tissue there and become less prevalent. I had gyno from puberty, which was then exacerbated by steroid usage, but when I got really lean, it wasn't really quite there because it wasn't that big. I still got gyno surgery, got it cut out, but if you are experiencing gynecomastia now, then look into your blood work immediately, get your estradiol check your prolactin too. I mean, I think you just ran 250 tests, so I don't think you're running an RT nor, but that's just worthwhile checking too. I know you can also try raloxifene, which I believe, supposedly, I can't remember the research, but that has been used to successfully reduce or reverse gyno. I know some guys back in the day would like say, use Letro, crash your estradiol and blast Letro and it'll shrink it. No, they were just reducing their estradiol, but yeah, I would say try some tamoxifen, but it really depends on what stage it's at.
Yeah, it's so cheap this time. I mean, cheap is relative, but it's much more accessible now to get gyno surgery, even in the U.S. Like it's not that big of a deal. You could get a payment plan, pay $60 a month for it, have it be done for 3 years. You've got to pay $60 a month, whatever. But at least it's gone. You never have to worry about it again.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Ribodex. Nothing will.
It's just an aromatase
issue. Yeah. It will stop estrogen from elevating and therefore initiating something like gynecomastia. So that's something you'd want to take prophylactically. But if you have gyno, it is there. It's solidified. I'm definitely gregging my Duchette. Donald Trump is one of the greatest, but I don't know about the greatest. I'd say, back in the day when we look at like people like just any of the founding fathers of America, right? Like these guys were like 20. These guys are like 26, 28, 32. Now we have fucking old fucks that can't do any. It's like, man, I want to go back to the days where 20-year-olds were the fucking presidents and like actually intellectuals. It's crazy. Mild adductor strain maxing out the leg. Had a sharp pain in the pain today. Can walk fine, no bruising. How long does recovery typically? Hard answer to say. It's Blast
peptides, TB 500 BPC, bomb size 7, speak to me in a week. 1 milligram of each injected in the adductor.
Yeah, there you go. No, I seriously think like I mean, yeah, it's a good protocol. Maybe wait 72 hours if the soreness is still there, then maybe look into it further. I'd say generally if muscles / tendons aren't recovered in 72 hours, there's too much happening. Either you need more recovery or to decrease the load or volume, but more importantly, like there's an abundance of damage done somewhere, and we don't want that. Nana IFBB Pro. I actually have looked into him a bunch. I think the probability is that he's natural. He's not like, I think people get so diluted with these concepts. He's not like 180 pounds or 280 pounds. He's like 160 fucking pounds. Like if I walked next to him, and I'm not like the biggest dude in the world, I would dwarf him. So like when someone has really good muscle insertions and is lean, they look enhanced, but it's not impossible to get lean in a real world application. It's just, it takes a calorie deficit and a lot of discipline, and sometimes genetics can help at the end of the day.
For sure.
Would you say that in general, most peptides are safe to use? I would say that they're safer to use than other things, but there's still some that are like...
There's that many, like Is X random peptide that's just been developed? I don't know.
What the fuck is it called? Adipokine. Fuck. What is that? Hold on. I'm gonna look this up really quick. Oh man, Boston Lloyd injected it next to his kidney, and then his kidney failed.
Shit! Yeah. Oh fuck! I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, exactly. So, approach each drug if it's not safe. Do your research and think long and hard about it. Oh, scientific snitch and Positron. Adipositron.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I was just looking at a list of like all of the drugs and like squinting my eyes, and then she pops up out of nowhere with this. That's crazy. Yeah, not a great compound to fuck around with. There's some pretty sketchy stuff anecdotally that's happened within the field, and like I would say very broad strokes. Peptides are much more, their safety profile is better than taking a swath of fucking like trenbolone. But at the end of the day, a lot of them are experimental drugs. For this case, this drug is one that's been used in rats more than has been in humans, and we don't really know what the application means long term. So is it worth really jamming your body with and hoping for the best? Probably not. Our rule has always been, look at the human clinical research. If something's been used in humans and it's actually effective and approved, it's probably worth using. For example, GLP-1 agonists, or testosterone, or Anavar, or Primobolan, which is they're all still in use today. These things we use because they're safe and their profiles generally acceptable within humans. But when you start going into things like RAD140 or MK677, or these compounds like Ligandrol, or things that really have no application in humans, that's where it's like, what the fuck are you doing? So for example, growth hormone's a peptide. It works great. There's children taking 36 IUs of growth hormone for short stature. They're not dying or have horrible mortality risks. They're just fine. So we know that generally that's quite safe. Yeah. Yeah. So I would say that for the most part, they're safer. Not exactly, but safer. Adipose about adipose tissue can be beneficial, but I definitely wouldn't fuck around with it. Yeah.
Agreed.
You look jacked in that photo, by the way. Pretty sick. Yeah, so be careful out there. Just don't. There's a lot of shit that you can buy these days. Just don't be a kid in a candy store, because there's almost nothing that's going to be magical for you. Thoughts on Deca and a Master on cuts? Look, there's no cut or bulk cycle. It's just the cycle. Like, what works for you? Do your N equals 1. What drugs give you the least burden of effects, like least amount of side effects? For example, we were just talking about hypertension with another guy. What drugs are not giving you hypertension? Use those ones. You can still get lean on any drug. You can still get bone shredded and have striated glutes on any drug. It's just which ones are the best for you. That's your answer at the end of the day. Yes.
Calorie deficit.
Yeah, at the end of the day. To be honest. So geez, there's so many things here. People talking about reversing gyno. It seemed to work. I think this is where clarity of words matter.
Context.
Yeah. What he was saying is that his titties looked smaller. He's not saying it worked. He's just saying his titties look smaller.
Yes.
And in that case, again, like I was saying, you can bring localized inflammation down from too much estrogen interaction with the receptor site on that, like beta 2 receptor on the titty. Beta 2 receptor. What is it? Is it the beta 2?
Oh, you talk about the. You have the androceptor.
Yeah.
You talk about the. Yeah. Anyway,
I talk about drugs.
Selective estrogen receptor modulator. So it's going to basically act on the breast tissue and the receptors there on the tissue. And basically, what would happen is it would help bring its estradiol down, and the tissue is non-fibrous. It can sometimes shrink a bit up. Done with a lot of athletes or clients before, where they've started or they've come to me with experiencing gynecomastia-like symptoms. We get their E2 levels and sex hormones balanced. We've used a bit of tamoxifen or raloxifene. Usually the tissue will shrink, but sometimes if it's a bit of a fibrous tissue there, it will stay. So I've never heard of someone with fibrous tissue or the early onset of gynecomastia blasting tamoxifen and then it completely being gone. Yes, I've heard of it shrinking. I've experienced it anecdotally myself, but I don't think it's going to completely go away if it's, like I said, fibrous tissue.
Yeah. You're fucked, bro. Got to get that knife. Got to get that knife. Okay, let me just see. Go watch video. Okay. Is injectable L-carnitine a good addition for someone on TRT or a waste of time? I think maybe Adam and I actually have different opinions on this. I think it's kind of a meh thing to do, considering the injection frequency and the PIP and the plausible effects of it maybe not actually doing anything that favorable in terms of androgen receptor upregulation or even like beta cell or beta oxidization. Like there's just not much. Like when you really look at the research, it's not super supportive. There's stuff there, but I'm just like, is it worth the extra $100 a month, the daily injections, all the other bullshit, or would, again, I'm sorry I default to this, but is growth hormone more effective?
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's very situational. For example, if you are a male and the L-carnitine you get gives you a shitload of post-injection pain that's very, very rough, nah, probably not. I mean, the increase in androgen receptor density, the potential effect on insulin sensitivity, and liberating additional fatty acids for oxidation, sure, maybe beneficial in some circumstances, but often it's not worth the price and post-injection pain. However, if you are a female and you're trying to not use virilizing compounds, it may be worthwhile something to explore, because even the slight effect of using, or anabolic, or rather the slight of performance enhancing effect you get from additional androgen receptors and what that may have on anabolism is worth using that instead of anabolic, or using an anabolic compound, which is going to viralize you. So in that circumstance, worthwhile. I will say the quality of the L-carnitine makes a huge fucking difference, because I've used L-carnitines where it's like, holy shit, it's some of the worst shots I've ever had, versus something that's actually quality with a higher concentration. I don't have to inject much of it. It was actually okay, and I found for that, potentially worth it.
Yeah. I don't know if you're talking to me. I was in the Army, not the Air Force. I did 8 years in the Army. I was in E6, E7 promotable, and then I voluntarily left the military on an honorable discharge. So that's what that is. Heart rate was Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, it's you might want to chill out just a little bit, man. Just
bro, check your resting. Yeah, bro, check your resting heart rate and get that shit sorted, bro. Fuck.
Yeah, fuck it all, mate. That's crazy. Does it make a difference to have the vast majority of calories later in the day? I do this because I train fasted early in the morning. Well, if you're considering like protein consumption and the ability to spike muscle protein synthesis multiple times in a day, I would consider that to be more advantageous than at I don't know if you're fasting, but like at one bolus in the day at night, that might not be as advantageous. Would you still be able to build muscle? Probably yes. Would you still be able to get stronger? Probably yes. But advantageous or optimal? Probably not.
Yeah, look, I've actually had a few clients in this situation too, Felipe, where, for whatever reason, they're very rushed in the mornings, they can't get food. And what I typically have them actually do is in their pre-bed meal, we know that, having a mixed meal with, higher fat content can slow, the digestion, so to speak. So by having a fair bit of carbohydrates, as well as, with some healthy fats pre-bed, your regular protein source, usually you do, a muscle glycogen, I think, takes about 36 hours to synthesize, or can take longer periods. Basically, if you have that meal, which is slow digestion, you can wake up, with, enough glycogen, or basically enough energy, so to speak, to be able to train. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I would say after you train, just try get in, some regular protein feedings throughout the day. Obviously, total protein content for the day is going to be most important, but I think Lane Norton put out some good research on, basically sparking muscle protein synthesis, and roughly we want a protein feeding every 4 hours, I believe. So if you can't get a full meal and just have a shake post-workout, and have, carbohydrates and fat before bed, you should be fine.
Any thoughts on glutathione injections for general health?
How old are you?
Yeah, I really don't think you need to be doing it chronically. I think if you're sick, it has good validity and possibly creating immune response, which is great. I think it has a really profound effect at, easing out the hepatic system if you're, really jacking shit up with some oral steroids or something of that nature. I don't actually think it's that useful chronically, though. I wouldn't be injecting it, because we all often think of antioxidant status as a good thing, but too much antioxidant status is also a very bad thing. Just like you know, having cortisol is good. Having too much may not be that great, but having no cortisol, you're fucking dead. So people often think like if then that, and it's more, well, kind of it matters like contextually in what you're talking about. So it's hard to say exactly.
Further to add to that, I don't want to like indirectly not answer your question, but like for the most part, I almost find when people come to us and ask like, is X compound good? Is Y compound good? Very rarely does someone come to us where it's like they have a diet which hits all their micronutrient needs. They're on point with their diet. They're doing some form of cardio for cardiovascular health. Their training is optimized with exercise execution. They're taking supplements which, you know, genuinely are, you know, going to be beneficial for most people. Think like a fish oil with high omega-3, DHA, and EPA in it. If you've done all that shit and you have access to like intravenous glutathione, maybe sure. But it's like, I can almost guarantee you when someone asks me like a very specific compound is going to be beneficial, I can almost guarantee that if they, you know, consult with us, on board with us, whatever it is, and we went through all the shit they were doing, we would find stuff which would be way cheaper, way easier to implement, which would give them way better bang for their buck than spending, I don't know how many dollars on injectable or intravenous, you know, glutathione. So rather look for the low-hanging fruit is what I'm saying. But hey, you could be perfect in every other area. What do I know? But just, you know, think about that low-hanging fruit first.
What's your thoughts on primo and test ratios? It completely is, we've touched on this before, it matters on you as an individual. I can run a gram plus of testosterone and have zero aromatization issues. Adam can run 200 milligrams of testosterone and start to have aromatization issues. You need lots of primo to counteract that aromatization issues. Adam's had a client where he's put them on how much primo into.
It's like we had him on 100 milligrams and his estradiol was like low.
Yeah, it crashed his estradiol. So it really, we don't have an answer. It's do your blood work, test, get the proxies for your own N=1, like figure it out on your own. That just develop a biological passport. This is what everyone should be doing, where they test every 10 to 12 weeks, get an idea of where their health is generally at a, you know, hormonal level, as well as like endocrine function, just general endocrine function. Then that gives you a biological passport to say, this is what happens when I do this. This is what happens when I do this. This is what happens when I do this. And then you can make an educated decision on what's the best for you in all of these situations, whether that's the best cycle, the best ratio of certain hormones, what to add to those certain hormones. You don't have to go crazy. Theodore Roosevelt was the young president. I'm being bullish here, obviously joking, but I'm not. I know most presidents weren't 20-something years old, but back in the day, like there was like starters. You know, they started their career guiding the entire country. The president is the only one in operation, right? There's many people below him, and these people were like in their 20s and shit, like killing it. And it just blows me away that now, whatever. This is a story for different day, but. Just I wonder what Gyno to max. Yeah, that happens. What is the best supplement to get rid of androgen-induced acne? Vitamin B5, if I had to say, is pretty effective at a super dose. Like literally 5 to 10 grams can be quite effective. Alternatively, just
you know what I'm gonna say. Yeah, that too. I mean, I actually am a big fan of acetretinoin, Accutane or Roaccutane. You can use it in lower doses. Yes, it can have a whole host of side effects, but I do find for most individuals, it does reduce, like, you know, the amount of oil secreted from your sebaceous glands, which can, you know, upregulate with most people using androgens and obviously with, you know, fluctuating hormones. And I find a low dose for most individuals, as long as you're testing your blood work, okay, can be well tolerated and actually help reduce acne whilst taking anabolics.
Yeah, perfection. What's your all-time best squat, bench, deadlift? It's shit, dude. I have cerebral palsy. it's like garbage as fuck. I have, so the most I've ever benched was, I don't know the numbers, 4 plates per side. The most I've ever squatted was 5 plates per side, and the most I've ever deadlift was also, I think it was also 5 plates per side. So that was not crazy. Pretty average gym bro shit. Just scientific snitch robbing our intelligence. What would help?
Thanks.
So what would help? What would you take to help me reduce apolipoprotein B and to help raise LDL? And he mixed those two up. I think he even says that. Yeah, had the blood backwards. Apolipoprotein, scientific answers. Apolipoprotein B binds to LDL for clearance, and you don't want to reduce HDL cholesterol. I would recommend fiber and PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acids, N6 and statins if the problem is real, which I agree. I typically have people, if they have like an unruly set of lipoproteins, or there's just people with genetic dispositions, like that is a very real thing where they'll have like high apolipoproteinase, and it's just they're chronically kind of in a position where it's tough. I would use like rosuvastatin, like 5 mg of rosuvastatin like once a week. That's it, and that would do an amazing job at maintaining that in a legible level. Like it's not going to be outrageous or in risk parameters, and I generally find that that's pretty good. And then if needed, like scientific answers later on. I hate that I call her that. Like she has a real name, but I use ezetimibe as a polytherapy for that if it's needed. Which most of the time, if you're doing cardio, eating good fiber, creating short chain fatty acids, like you're good to go.
I also found red rice yeast extract because it has, I think, a substance monocolin K, which I think is similar to some statins, and I usually find that actually a pretty good effect on LDL. So the thing is with ezetimibe, is my understanding too, it inhibits all cholesterol absorption, which can also affect your HDL. So I'm not like the biggest fan of ezetimibe if we can rather like acutely lower LDL and maintain HDL. So that's why I'm like, obviously besides the fiber, diet, cardio things, like scientific said, omega-3 fatty acids, or just basically any sort of, anything that's going to help with dyslipidemia, or just specifically acutely lower LDL, like red rice yeast extract, citrus bergamot. Try those over-the-counter supplements before we start, resorting to medication, I would say. But as Kolton said, like, a statin infrequently dose can also assist with that. And then obviously we have to remember that your lipoproteins have a large, and even your lipids in general have a large genetic component to it, which should mean like, oh, I'm not going to control my lipids. Fuck, it's genetic. It's like, actually, you should spend more time.
Yeah, you should be very much more considerate.
Yes.
She also says you don't want your HDL astronomically high, and then she's so right about this. And there's a lot of misconception about this. Like there's a reverse U curve, and if you have a mid-ranged HDL, it's great. If you have too high, it's more correlated with cardiovascular disease. If you have too little, it's correlated with cardiovascular disease. So like having that mid-range is good. I would also say when we're talking about HDLC and LDLC, those aren't real blood markers. Like those are, there is no such, serum value of HDL cholesterol. Like that's not a thing. We have lipoproteins because
it's your high density lipoproteins.
Yeah. We have lipoproteins, which are what carries those lipids, because our blood is, well, it's primarily made of water. If we mix fat with water, it doesn't mix. So we carry those fat molecules in lipids, or not those lipids in proteins, and those are lipoproteins. And so I try to measure off lipoproteins, and then look at HDL, LDL as a proxy to correlation more than anything. But
I will say, scientific snitch, I agree with you. We don't want astronomically high HDL, but no one gears having high HDL. Unfortunately. At least
she corrected me. A U curve, yes. Yeah. Yes, red yeast rice is just as Adam correctly said, but she did say
it's not just a statin, but it has a similar compound in it, which sort of has it, which is actually, I think it's found in Luvastatin. I know scientific snitch will probably call it out for me. Yeah. But yes, it has a similar effect to that, which is why I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much going on. All right. Okay, let's get one more. Justin Harris's rebound protocol is so dangerous. First time post show, dude had me on 1,000 milligrams or 1,000 grams. I talk about drugs too much, dude. I say
your dose of carbs.
1,000 grams of carbohydrates a day with insulin and a cheat meal at the end of the day. That is not smart for a first time champ. I would say no, but also for him, you have to think like he's been doing this for a long time, and what he says isn't always accurate, but it does work in some contexts. And usually why he does something isn't because of it's going to give this guy more muscle. Oftentimes it's because of like an off-targeted effect. And so for him, his idea is that he doesn't want people to just go off diet, fail, and then have this like chronic cyclical rebounding situation where they eat too much, then starve themselves, eat too much, and then starve themselves, eat too much. Because that happens after prep. So you'll have people who binge and then like, fuck, I got to get all this weight off. So they starve themselves. And then what do they They just get chronically hungry again. So they binge again. And so what he's trying to do is just load you up with an absurd amount of food. So you just stop being hungry. And then like 2 weeks later, actually hit the rebound so that we're not having to deal with like the obsessive need to eat, basically. I'm not agreeing with it. I don't think it's like the correct way to go about things. But I think it's like the off target effect of it is the concept he's looking for here. So,
yes. So, I mean, I agree with Kolton there. Like, Justin is a smart guy, but I also know he coaches a shitload of clients. And if I were to make an assumption here, I mean, again, I'm sure Justin would be able to answer himself, but he is probably mixing what, in theory, he would like to do, but what he knows that people would more likely adhere to. So, for example, if he told you have, I don't know, 800 grams or 700 grams of, unprocessed, high micronutrient dense food, basically your bro food with good micronutrients in it, and you stick to that, 90% of people are going to fuck out. So instead he says, okay, have 1,000 grams of carbs at a cheat meal because fuck, you're going to have it anyway. Rather you be so full with 1,000 grams of carbs from like decent sources and a cheat meal that works. That's what I'm thinking. I'm not saying that I would potentially do that. Like, I sort of treat every individual differently, and also I like GLP-1 agonists in the Rebound for this reason. But it was probably not maybe popularized or in available when you were doing it. I don't know, but context is important. So that's what I can assume from that.
Yeah, I'll also say like all his cheat meals are usually optional too. That's what I've seen from his protocols. When we all just kind of have clients like bouncing between us at certain points, and I've seen his protocols. It's usually an optional cheat meal. I will say also that like he doesn't. I'm sure if you communicated this to him and you're like, "Hey man, this is what's happening," you'd be like, "Oh shit, let's stop doing this." A lot of the times, these coaching errors happen from a lack of communication with the client themselves or the client with the coach, right? It's your responsibility to tell the coach, hey, this is what's happening. I don't know what the fuck to do. And then he's like, oh shit, let's change this immediately. But if he never knows, how is he going to change something? And I've had that happen a lot where a client gets mad at me for not changing something. It's like, I never knew this was an issue. I need to know what's happening. And that's why we text. That's why we call. That's why we have these options for you. If I don't know, I can't change things. So I wouldn't necessarily blame it on Justin.
But because I also, sorry, go ahead.
No, you.
No, I was just saying, not to blow smoke up our own ass here, but one thing that I've definitely noticed a lot with coaching is that people just take on a shitload of clients, especially, more popular coaches. I'm not saying this, I'm talking about in general. And unfortunately, I find that the communication is not the fastest. And that's why, Kolton and myself, we have a very definitive cap based on our response time, because if I have so many clients that I cannot get back to in, I say a 24-hour window, but realistically, if most of my clients get test this, it's less than 12 hours. I wake up, I answer messages, I work during the day, I answer messages in the evening, and if it's important or an emergency, I'll answer, messages, during the day. And that's why communication is so goddamn important, because you mentioned there that you had heart palpitations. I am almost 100% certain, like, if you message your coach or message Justin, hey, I've got heart palpitations, an adjustment would be made or something would be done about it. So that's why Kolton said, I think, communication and coaching and having a coach who responds to you quickly is so goddamn important. You can make the best plan, but if you've got no communication or adjustments, like, fuck, how's that going to help you?
Yeah, this is like so important, right? And it's why, like, we have the Discord group and I don't spend all day in there. And the reason why is because I'm like calling clients. Like, I had 9 calls today, and like 9 calls, it's not a big deal. Each is like an hour long, so shit stacks up super fast. Scientific Stitch also says there was a high fat keto diet in a Vivo study I'm citing in my review, which found that the keto diet worsened cardiac function by 25% post myocardial infarction.
Oh, please post that one. The amount of fucking times I have keto diet is optimal for
Yeah.
XYZ. Okay, maybe there's a
Like the
circumstance which,
fucking
but fuck.
Jesus, dude. The testosterone maxing guy on Instagram that I always make fun of. I've done whole YouTube videos on him. I've done Instagrams on him. I got into his course and like looked at his course that he's selling on School. And it's like, dude, this guy is just like he's finding anything that has a PMID like, and he's just like hiding it. It just it's crazy.
Yeah.
Dude. And people are just
Yeah, I won't name names, but Kolton, I had a client who joined who was like previously obese, but was on a ketogenic diet, but had horrible HDL, LDL, lipoprotein A, lipoprotein B, just horrible lipid markers, poor C-reactive protein. Basically, like we were really worried with this guy. You know, wanted him to go get a CAT score test. You know, get like maybe an echocardiogram. Even so. And long story short, he just would not do anything but a super high fat diet. And I'm not even talking about like grass fed butter. I'm talking about like motherfucker was like what are you fucking eating, like having a bunch of having like animal fats on its shit, and
tons of this shit.
Long story short, yeah we basically couldn't work with him because he just refused. I was like, look, if you want to kill yourself, fuck, do it, not on our time.
It's so weird how there's this emotional attachment to it, right? Like, I don't understand. It's the same thing with training, right? Like when you're talking high or low volume, you're talking, high frequency, low frequency, or you're talking bulking or not bulking. It's like people are so emotional with the things that they care about. And it's to a point where even if you show up a person the data, like the hard facts, or even not the data, just the own data that we've collected, for example, this is what I've done with, 150 people, and it's worked fairly well. What do you think? No, that's not for me. This isn't going to fucking work. It's like, how do you know? How do you know? It's just like crazy.
I think most of the people who benefit from like a cardio keto diet are people who went from, I say the standard American diet, or just eating like dog shit. Anything is going to be an upgrade. You could eat fucking cardboard, rice, and a protein shake 3 times a day, and it would be an improvement from what you were previously eating. So no shit, you lost weight because you just started controlling calories, because you removed a whole macronutrient source from your diet. There you go.
Yeah, I love when people that's how are you surprised? Yeah, I know, it's crazy. I love when people, carnivore people do this all the time where they're like, I got on carnivore and all my autoimmune issues went away. Like, imagine that. You stopped eating like hyper processed palatable foods and suddenly your autoimmune issues went away. Is it the fact that you just did carnivore, or is it the fact that you started making your own food at home, buying whole foods, and taking care of your health? Because generally speaking, once you change your diet, you're also more conscientious about what you're supplementing with, how your exercise is. It's like these things are multifactorial, Yeah, the Mongolian diet is the best, bro. That shit bumps, dude. That's crazy. Anyways, guys, I have to get off. It's fucking late as shit here. I have YouTube videos to make and stuff. So I do appreciate you guys for being here. If you want, join our Discord group. Scientific Snitch is in it as well. You can talk shit to her all day. She loves it. And if you also want, subscribe. It's awesome. Thank you for being here, you guys. I appreciate it. If you have any more questions, leave them down below and we'll get back to them. So have a beautiful evening. Scientific Snitch, thank you for tuning in. It's always an honor. And we'll see you next time. Deuces. He's so smart.